The Houston Texans travel to Jacksonville on Thursday night to face their division rival Jaguars. Houston is a 2.5-point favorite here on BETDAQ. 43 is the total in this game. That's right, Houston is a favorite here despite the fact they have lost 10 straight games, and they lost to these very same Jacksonville Jaguars just 2 weeks ago in Houston. Jags pulling out a 13-6 win in that game. So it might strike you a little odd to see the Texans favored here, but you got to realize just how bad Jacksonville has been at home this season. The Jags have lost all 5 of their home games. They've lost those 5 games by 123 combined points. Now, one of those games was in London. Remember, that's technically a home game for the Jags, and they lost that game 42-10. But still, you remove that game, they've still lost their other 4 games by 91 combined points, and they haven't yet scored a touchdown in Jacksonville this season. Now, they did score a touchdown in their home game in England, but they have yet to find the end zone in Jacksonville. So I think that's a big reason why the Houston Texans are favored here. But you got to realize the Jags have a lot going for them right now. They've won 3 out of their last 4 games. A lot of positive energy surrounding this team right now. You know, Gus Bradley, their first-year head coach, is Mr. Positive Energy. And it seemed a little ridiculous, quite frankly, through 6 or 7 weeks when Jacksonville was the worst team in the NFL. But look what's happened now. The players seem to be buying into what he's selling. And for a 3-9 team, there's a lot of things to like about the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially their improvement on defense. They have really improved on defense over the last few weeks. Statistically, they're still not great, 30th in the NFL in points allowed, but they were 32nd in that very same category just 3 weeks ago. They held these Texans to 6 points 2 weeks ago, as we said, and even last week in their game against Cleveland. Yes, they allowed some passing yards. They allowed receiver Josh Gordon to go off a bit, but that defense made some things happen. Their defense outplayed the Cleveland defense, which entered the game ranked 4th in the NFL in yards allowed. So we're definitely seeing some improvement from that Jacksonville defense, and that's to be expected, of course. Gus Bradley is a defensive guy. Unfortunately for the Jags, we have not seen a whole lot of improvement out of that offense. Now, they did have their best game of the year last week, putting 32 points on the Cleveland Browns. This offense still ranks last in the NFL in yards per game, points per game, rushing offense. They produced only 13 points the last time they saw the Texans, and that shouldn't be surprising because Houston has an excellent defense. The Texans 3rd in the NFL in yards allowed, and really that matchup, the Texans defense versus the Jacksonville offense, is what's holding me back from liking Jacksonville in this spot. Listen, it's tough for me to recommend a Texans bet because I've been really wrong on the Texans this year. I know a lot of people have been wrong on the Texans. Not many people expected them to be 2-10. But I don't know if there's that many people who have backed the Texans as often as I have this year. I've bet on them at least 4 or 5 times, and I think I've missed every time. Some of those losses have been especially painful. I was backing them at home against the Seattle Seahawks a few weeks ago when the Seahawks were behind 24-6 late in the 3rd quarter. Biggest fourth quarter comeback in Seattle franchise history that game was. And then I was backing the Texans again a couple of weeks later at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Again, they held a big lead late in the 3rd quarter. Colts came back to win that game. So I've had real bad luck backing the Texans this season, and I was really unimpressed with Case Keenum 2 weeks ago when he faced these Jaguars. However, Jacksonville is so bad on offense, and the Texans are really good on defense. Make no mistake, if you haven't seen the Texans play much, and you see their 10-game losing streak, you think they're really bad on both sides of the ball. They are not. This team plays very, very well on the defensive side of the ball. Just don't think Jacksonville is going to be able to move the ball at all in this game. So I do have a Texans lean, and I say that with a look on my face because, again, I've been wrong on the Texans this season. There's no doubt that Jacksonville has a lot of positive momentum right now, and the Texans do not. As a matter of fact, the Texans, the last time they played the Jags, they look like they're ready for this season to end. They did turn it around and play a little bit better last week, nearly beat the New England Patriots, and I expect Houston to pull out their first win in 11 games here on Thursday night. Wouldn't shock me if we saw the Jags get their first home win in over a year, but I can't bet on that happening. Listen, I live here in Jacksonville. I'm surrounded and inundated with Jaguar news and Jaguar information, and it is so refreshing these last few weeks to not be just surrounded by all the negativity. But maybe it's just that I've seen Jacksonville play too many times over the last couple of years. I'm just scarred. I don't have any faith in this team winning, especially at home. Even though they've lost 10 straight games, I think the Texans get it done here. I lean towards Houston -2.5.